It was noontime today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about free speech. Free speech. Well, in America, where's it all come from? Do we have free speech? Well, where did it begin here?
Well, I mean, obviously back in the day, free speech, in the earliest times, that was just standard, right? Everybody gets to say whatever they want since people started talking. That was just it. The only time you weren't allowed to express yourself is when your mom threatened to backhand you for talking too much.
Exactly.
The only people that have problems with free speech are governments, right? That's the main reason. You can't criticize the government. You can't criticize the king. You can't criticize the emperor. You know what I mean? You can't criticize the Chinese government. There's all sorts of issues with that. That's the organization that always has problem with free speech.
It's the government.
It's the government, right? The main reason for free speech is to criticize your government and to get things fixed. So in the earliest stages of the United States, they're working on the Constitution, working things out. And they said James Madison was speaking up. Now, if you don't know who James Madison is, he's the fifth American president, one of the founding fathers, involved in, the current Constitution in the United States. Get your life together, read a book. That's kind of something that everybody should know about. James Madison.
No, so obviously he's founding father. That means he was an evil slave owner that didn't like anybody, right?
Yeah, well, it's I guess you could I don't know. That's probably what they would tell you in college, but whatever. He didn't own slaves, but that's whatever. That's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter to those people. But I mean, that's kind of the thing. Free speech, right? You can say whatever you want, even if you're wrong. You just have to have somebody else that knows better.
Right.
And that's the important part of it. So he originally wrote the First Amendment, which was much longer than the one we currently have. The one we currently have goes something like this. Right. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of their grievances. So the First Amendment really covers a lot of stuff there. We get into freedom of the press. We get into freedom of the religion, that there should not be a state religion, but anybody can exercise their own religion, whatever it might be. And people can say whatever they want to say. And it's important to a republic and to a democracy to do so.
Now, people seem to get confused a lot on freedom of religion. They always hear in their mind freedom from religion.
Right.
And that's kind of a different thing. But you said there was a different version?
Right. So I'm gonna parse this down to just the speech section, because that's what we're talking about today. But the original version was: the people shall not be deprived of the right to speak, to write, or to publish their sentiments, and the freedom of the press, as one of the great bulwarks of liberty, shall be inviolable. Inviolable is a word that we don't use very often anymore, but it can't be violated is what that means. So basically what he was saying was he was just expanding on that and had a small argument there as why it's important. I think that's important to understand, that was originally how it was described. And even though it's parsed down a little bit in the one that we currently have, it basically encompasses all that sort of stuff. Pretty outright, it says in the Constitution, the government cannot prohibit you from your expression of free speech. They do it though, it still happens.
Right.
If you go online, you can look up all these videos. This guy, he's kind of a dickhead, which, I mean, whatever. I'm a dickhead too.
Are you talking about me?
No, this guy's name is Jeff.
Okay.
He goes by Jeff, and he
Jeff.
basically goes
I don't like Jeff.
He goes to public property and holds up a sign that says, "God bless the homeless vets." And it's in front of the town hall or in front of the library. And eventually a cop shows up and be like, "Hey, you can't do that here. You can't talk openly. You can't have free speech. You can't hold up a sign that says that." Apparently, a lot of police officers have problems with God or homeless vets, one of the two. I don't know what it is. But inevitably, somebody will arrest him, and then he will get a settlement. He could probably make a living just going to public places and holding up a sign that says, "God bless the homeless vets."
I know policemen are supposed to learn the laws. Like they actually,
I feel like they all swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. Right. They just haven't read the Constitution, maybe.
Well, the Constitution's hard to come by. That's kind of a banned document. When they talk about burning books and banning hate speech and stuff, they're talking about the Constitution.
That's what they're talking about. Yeah.
They don't want to say that, but we know that's the truth.
Yeah, the Declaration of Independence is pretty out there, man. A lot of people get offended by it. So
now let me start.
It's not politically correct anymore.
Thing. A lot of you guys are like, "Well, I have the right to say, whatever," and and that's why you got excited and you clicked on this video and you were like, "Oh, I'm going to say something." Now, I just have to point out, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but it applies to some of you. Just because you can say something doesn't mean that you should say something. I know for some reason I had a Bible verse repeated to me so many times as a child that I actually committed it to memory. And it was Proverbs 10:19, "A man who holds his tongue is wise." And it
was that. I feel like we both are unwise people based on that.
Right. When I taught that to a buddy of mine at work, he's like, "I see that. That's why they said that to you over and over again. That makes perfect sense. I get it.
Yep.
That fits you, buddy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. All right." So, but I'm just saying, it doesn't mean that you're right just because you can say something. One of the big things for freedom of speech was to call out frauds and expose them. The ideas need to be tested, right? That's the point of robust debate. It's a cornerstone of society, and there's a reason for that. You want to hash out the ideas and let the good ideas win.
Right. Like you might want to say that Matt Gaetz fucks kids and he shouldn't be elected, but that's fine because people keep voting for him. So whatever you can say it till you're blue in the face, it doesn't change the fact that he's a congressman.
Okay. And on that note, Kevin, was that hate speech right there?
Yeah. I don't think you can call out pedophiles anymore. I'm not sure what it is. I know that I say some crazy stuff and I get called things like Nazi, racist, groomer, pedophile type stuff. And that's fine. You can say that on the internet because that's not real life. But, say that to my face in real life and we're going to have real life problems.
So. Kevin's adulting right now. Yeah. No, that's the thing. Like, the idea is you should be able to say what you want to say, but you also don't have the right to be heard.
Right.
So you have the right to speak it, but you don't have the right. And what I mean by that is like, you don't have the right to platforms that are not yours. Like you can't be like, well, Chuck, I have opinions and I should be on your podcast. You have to let me on so I can have the counter argument. Well, no, you don't have a right to that. Now, YouTube has opened it up to pretty much anybody. Now, you could have like a follow-up, like why I hate the prepping bad or, the survival and basic badass podcast and why the prepping badass channel is full of lies and hate. And you could run that right alongside of mine.
Yeah. And I will support that.
I'd probably watch it.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
So, I mean, hey, you might have an audience, but you might not. People might be like, "No, I love Kevin and Chuck. And how dare you?" and they would give you like down likes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'd be watching it. I mean, really, honestly, and then anybody who's willing to give me that much attention, I'm curious to see what they have to say.
Right. And people get offended when they get banned from Twitter, and maybe Twitter bans people more than I would agree with, but I also don't own Twitter, so whatever. Ain't my business.
Let's talk about that. So companies. Let's talk about companies. Now, companies silence free speech, but there's some issues there. It's good and bad. Like, you always have that, like, the idea is a company is private, but that's the problem in our country is companies aren't exactly private anymore. They're not, somehow the government has their hand in their finger in all kinds of things that they shouldn't. And it's not exactly private entities. However, a private company should be able to do whatever they want. If I make a bakery, I should be able to sell the Nazis or not sell the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to do whatever I want to do because it's my bakery. Now, can we murder children and stuff inside our bakery? No, that's for, another Planned Parenthood or something.
Yeah, that's the other company.
All right. That's another company. But, like, you have to stay in your lane just the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not committing a crime, now you're like, well, the government should make laws about hate speech and whatever. But no, it turns out that Kevin just pointed out that we're free to express words. Words are not crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, according to the Constitution, words are not crimes. And that's the thing. But you don't have the right to say, well, I should be heard on a college campus because all these kids are being taught nonsense and whatever. And I should be able to, expose my ideas to them. That's not how the world works. Private things, but there's places you can create public platforms. If you don't like Google, you make something else. That's why we get DuckDuckGo, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't censor stuff. I mean, is it as efficient and as good? And there's Bing, there's other tools you can use. And I'm sure Bing censors stuff. I have no idea. I don't really look into that. I know that Google does select what they bring up in their stuff is influenced politically.
Right. If you type in hate speech into Google, it's not going to bring you up hate speech. It's going to bring up people arguing against hate speech. Right.
Right. So that's the whole thing. But a private company should be allowed to do whatever they want. You don't have a right to be on it. Now, does it suck? And do I get mad that, if I go too far in my gun videos or whatever on YouTube, they don't like it, or, different things. I might get mad and whatever, but they have the right to do it. And YouTube is actually Google. So it's kind of,
right. It's the same.
One of those things. But, and that's where it gets weird is like everything is controlled by one company.
Right.
And then that's not completely the case. We have Twitter, but now that Twitter's $8 or whatever.
You can legally put up a soapbox in any public space and stand up there and shout any kind of crazy stuff you want to shout. The police will come though, and they'll try and make you stop. I mean, let's just be clear that people don't like that.
Right. But I will say, if you use appropriate language and articulate your ideas and use a little bit of caution, in theory, YouTube will show your ideas and put it out to the world, and people will either upvote that or downvote that. You see in the beginning of the intro of this podcast, we have that Tiananmen Square. Well, I stole that video off TikTok, and TikTok's owned by China. So I don't even understand. I'm like, but
it's not Chinese TikTok.
It's that what it is? It's not Chinese.
It's not Chinese TikTok. We got the American TikTok where that actually did happen. Chinese TikTok, that never happened.
That never happened.
That wasn't real. Fake news.
But I mean, it's, there are ways to get your ideas out there. Like there was that Rumsfeld was like, oh, we lost, what was it, $3 trillion or something?
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Before September 11th.
Yeah, a lot of money disappeared there.
And then that video is like damn near impossible to find on YouTube. But even like 7-8 years ago, it was everywhere on YouTube. Like not everywhere, but there were like 10 versions of it on YouTube, and now there's none. So you might want to kind of save that stuff, but in your archives, so you can bring it out every now and again. I know I have a copy of it somewhere because it's real, it's something that matters. But hey, to each their own. Now, so
it's missing
companies, right?
That's already gone.
Elon Musk says that free speech is essential to a functioning democracy.
Mm-hmm. But he banned free speech in Turkey. Just so we're clear.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Abolitionist Frederick Douglass, right? Remember him? He was kind of an important guy.
Yeah.
A little bit of history there. Mm-hmm. He said free speech, or to suppress free speech, is a double wrong because it violates the rights of the hearer and the speaker. And I think that's right. I mean, the idea is stuff should be out there. Now, obviously, maybe you're offended by bad words, right? You're like, oh, Kevin used an offensive word earlier in the podcast. Like Chuck never does that because he's, a respectable person, part of society. But you're like, oh, I'm offended by Kevin's language. That's fine. You don't need to, to watch our show. You can be like, hey, those guys are idiots. I don't like their tone. And there might be people, I can think of a few who don't use offensive language, who actually make really great points and put on a great show. So
that sounds crazy to me. I don't know who that person is. Yeah.
And they
crazy.
Might be entertaining for you. And that's fine, so, but you choose what you want and you vote with your dollars. You vote with, your thing. Like you might be offended that Target is selling like transgender baby suits to little kids, bathing suits to tuck their wieners in and hide them and pretend they're girls or something. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
But
you might be offended that Nestle is stealing people's water and then making them buy it back. You might be offended that they're selling poisonous baby formula to people in third world countries so that their mother stops producing breast milk, and now they have to use the formula. That might be offensive to you.
But you can vote with your dollars.
And you can not buy Nestle stuff.
I'm not telling you don't go to Target. I'm telling you get to choose what you want with your life. That's the whole thing. You get to be in control. And that's how it should be, a free debate of ideas. Now, the same thing, there's colleges. Now, when it comes to free speech, colleges are a whole enigma that is like unbelievable to me that I can't even
somehow comprehend. They're public and private at the same time.
Yeah.
There
now
all sorts of wrong things going on there that make it almost impossible to argue with them or fight against them.
Yeah. Now, colleges, but here's the thing. So colleges invite speakers. Now, should a college have to invite, like say, hey, I have opinions. I want to go to that college and express them. The college has no obligation and no obligation in my mind to invite me or allow me.
Right.
However, if a professor is like, hey, I want to, expand the, the ideas that my students are exposed to, and they invite somebody, then that's cool. That's how it should be.
Right.
We shouldn't be afraid of ideas. I think I read a lot of stories. I was reading one about Berkeley inviting a Republican speaker, and it was a very left-leaning professor that invited him. And they said, yeah, but I want my students to hear the other arguments so they can make their own decisions. And that's brilliant. That's how it should be. But again, there's no reason you want to just invite somebody who's going to come up there and be like, yeah, I hate white people. They're all stupid. Or I hate black people. They're all stupid. That doesn't do anything. But if you bring up somebody who's like, well, this happened and this happened in history, and people who lay out an articulate thing, then it might be worth somebody's time to hear it. Right. Just hearing a bunch of swear words doesn't help anything.
Right.
But going up and making articulate points, even if they're wrong, it's like Jon Stewart, right? I think he's kind of an idiot. I can't stand the guy. But compared to a lot of people, he articulates things and is like, well, this is why I think it. Now, a lot of it is kind of like gotcha stuff,
Right.
which annoys me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But he tries to make a point.
Mm-hmm. Right. And he
Like,
tries to defend
like,
the point. Right.
Right. And that's reasonable to me. And I can respect somebody a little bit for that. A little bit. Like, I still think he's a jackass. But, you know, hey, it's funny. I saw Bill Maher, somebody who just argues on emotion and I don't think makes articulate points. But Bill Maher had Russell Brand on the other day. And so the clip was on YouTube last night. And Russell Brand is like, oh, well, I brought something for your show because I knew I was going to be here. And he's like, it's going to shock you. And he's like, I brought facts. And I was like, ooh. And Bill Maher was like, well, this isn't acceptable. We don't do that here. And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the reason I don't watch his show.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, some people are just emotional, you know, it's like, oh, well, white people are stupid. And that's why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. But no, if you're like, oh, well, white people oppressed people. Well, that's still just emotion. But then if we're like, oh, you know, this many white people owned slaves and the other white people didn't stand up and say something, then you might have an argument, right? Then we can have a discussion and we can debate it in the
and we might even
exchange of ideas.
We might even debate it and come up with solutions that would solve problems. Imagine that we could talk things out and come up with a solution that would help everybody out. I don't know. That's kind of crazy. I don't think I would talk to somebody about that stuff. That sounds crazy. No. Sounds like a dick move. That sounds like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was reading a story about a guy at a college campus, and he was handing out, you know, I guess they have a free speech zone and whatever, but he maybe was not in the free speech zone, and he was trying to hand out copies of the Constitution on Constitution Day, and they were like, "Nope, not here." And to me,
not today, Satan.
Again, you're the college; you can decide what you want, but who is paying for their kids to go to a college, where they're like, "I hate America," Like that's just dumb. Like, you know, like come on, let's try. I hate free ideas because if they read that, they might have thoughts of their own.
Right. They might think it and then meditate on it and then agree with those ideas. That would be crazy.
If the Constitution is so crappy, then let people see it and be like, they'll see how dumb it is.
Yeah.
I like they always re-summarize. Like if you Google, what does the Second Amendment say?
Right.
You know, I think like Wikipedia and all these have the like, well, it says that soldiers could have guns to protect the country,
and they'll have like, well, 20,000 word essay on what the you know,
they don't have the actual sentence, you know, of the Second Amendment. And I'm like, well, you worked so hard to tell us what it meant, but you didn't tell
us what it actually meant.
That if we saw it, we'd be, you know, and that's the whole point. Everything. I mean, that's why, you know, we're having this discussion. Is because with free speech, it just more and more. How many
news articles have you read? Because I know I've read a few of them where somebody said something outrageous, and basically the entire article is about what they need to do about this person that said the outrageous thing, but they never said what they actually said. You know what I mean? Like you can't read what the outrageous thing was. So I don't know. To me, when people say outrageous things, I want to hear what it is. You know what I mean? I can make my own decision about whether it's outrageous or not. I'm a grown up, but you're not allowed to. They don't want to. They don't want to propagate that sort of stuff.
Right.
Whatever it might have been. Who fucking knows?
Right. Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Like people are like, oh, well, we have these free speech zones set up in campus. So you have one little place where people are allowed to talk their mind. Or
everywhere else, though, that's not free speech anywhere else.
How about everywhere?
How about the entire campus is a free speech zone?
Or we'll let you have your dorm room where you can go be safe. You know, you go in there and
that's a safe space. My bedroom is a safe space. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I go in there and close the door, nobody else is going to come in there and argue with me about anything. That's my safe space when I'm sleeping. All the rest of the time, I'm willing to argue with anybody about anything.
Exactly. I mean, I gotta say, I really feel like, people let the school and education system go. And they were like, oh, well, I'm busy with work and I have to do, the American family's exhausted out, working 60 hours a week. Tons of people, have both mom and dad go out and work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard, right? People struggle. But the thing is, they don't have time. And they thought, oh, the school, I don't need to worry about it because how bad could it be? And my kids are around me and they hear what I say. But you got to realize you have several teachers who are around your kids 8 hours a day, and they really can shape, their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff matters, what's being taught and said. And these kids are offended by everything. When you watch some of the videos on, college campuses and stuff, and you listen to people talk, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, right? The way that stuff works, it shows you what you want to see. So when you go on Facebook and you're like, oh, I hate white people, and you see some video about, hey, look, white people are stupid. Look, they're all ignorant. And you can show a lot of ignorant white people. Me and Kevin may have been in some of those videos.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I'm going to side with them. I also hate white people, just to be clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but when you're like, oh, like, or even love,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you see the next video and they're like, yeah, look, all white people are fat. Look at Chuck. And then like, yep, that's
Mm-hmm.
true. Like, and then, but it'll say, hey, you know what you like to watch? You like to watch anti-white people videos. And then it just starts escalating.
It propagates
and it shows
that.
you more
Right.
and more.
Right.
Like I'll search. It's funny because I always search the topics all week for a podcast. I'm going to talk about free speech. So all of a sudden I open up YouTube and it's nothing but like free speech videos. Like, hey, this, hey, that. People who, look for free speech, look for this. And hey, you're offended by this. Hey, and you see it all day long. Covert entry, right? Hey, I'm looking that up. I'm looking at how to break into things. Hey, look, here's a video on this. Here's how to pick this type of lock. How to defeat this. Look at this implantable chip you can get in your hand.
Yeah.
RFID, and you can,
I mean, I'm sure my YouTube is flagged.
Things. Yeah.
With all the weird stuff that I look up on there for this show,
And that's it. But the thing is, it reinforces your idea, but it can also overwhelm you.
Right.
Where people feel like, oh, and so it seems worse than it is.
Right.
Right.
Well,
like
people really like stuff that pisses them off for some reason.
Right.
Things that make you angry or things you engage with. Right.
It's a strong emotion.
Nobody's engaging
Anger
with cat videos the way they're engaging with,
Some people are. Some people, what's the word? Blissfully ignorant. That's how they want to be.
That's good.
And that's probably not bad.
That's probably
but
good
if you
for your
don't
mental
watch
health.
The news or whatever. Like, I gotta say, I go about my day. I don't see anything to do with trans people or this or that or, universal bathroom things with weird. I did go to a restaurant the other day that had men, women, whatever sign, and it had some kind of like centaur.
Yeah, I've seen that
the
one.
half horse says,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. But in my general everyday, I don't see anything about it.
Yeah. And the truth is, when I saw that sign and it says, whatever you are, just make sure you wash your hands, that type of shit. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't worry about that later on in my life,
No.
I just take a shit and wash my hands,
I'm there. I'm like, look, you have a bathroom and there's not pee all over the seat.
I'm happy.
Win.
Yeah.
That's how I take it. But that's the thing. You should be able to, but whatever. But if that offended me, it's not, I should be out, protesting out front. I mean, that's how I approach things. Like, I don't know. Some people do have to protest everything, whatever. But I just like, hey, maybe I'm not going to spend my money there.
Right.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was great. But, whatever.
If that does offend you, then you can just not go to that place anymore.
Don't go there. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, I went to this coffee shop and it was a trans coffee shop. And I'm like, well, they had good coffee?
Yeah,
And
what
she's
was
like,
what was
well,
the
yeah,
coffee
the coffee
situation?
was really good. And I'm like, so I should go there,
Mhm.
or I'm not
Well,
sure. Like,
you
what do
bring it up.
you?
Let me tell you this coffee place I did go that I was offended, and I didn't spend money
Okay,
there. I went there, and
all
as
right.
soon as I walked in, I saw a bunch of like overstuffed couches with middle-aged women with
Mm.
oversized sweaters drinking out of
And
oversized
oversized
coffee
butts.
cups.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
nah, this ain't my place. No.
Right. But that's it. That's your choice. And that's okay. We don't need to hate each other. Or, some people are like, oh, like the word retarded, that offends me when somebody uses it. I know that like bugs my wife. So out of respect, I don't use it to describe people
Right.
or whatever. And that's fine. And but you also just sometimes do things to not irritate people.
Right.
Sometimes if I say stupid things, it scares off people from hearing my ideas that matter.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn to speak articulately, clearly, and not to offend people, you might be able to reach a bigger audience and get to more people. Obviously, this show is not that. We don't do that, me and Kevin, but you could speak in a way that you don't offend everybody, and you might be able to get your ideas heard and considered. The more you present ideas with facts and evidence and with logic and reason instead of emotion, then you can possibly start to win over logical and reasonable people. Because there are a lot of people out there that are straight emotion driven,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
you're not going to win those over with facts and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, Trump has orange hair, he's dumb. Or did you see on Twitter he said something stupid? I'm like, yeah,
You
that's
could
fair.
basically say that at any point. Trump just said
Right.
something stupid.
It's
I'm
like,
not going to argue with it. You're probably right. I
it's like,
haven't seen it,
oh,
but you're probably
whoa,
right.
Yeah. No, it's like, how about like things like Animal Farm, right? Did you read Animal
That
Farm?
is highly
Words have
offensive.
meaning, right? Animal Farm, people are like, oh, ban these books. They're bad. They're offended. That Fahrenheit book, and there's
I just saw recently there was a good one. They had banned the Diary of Anne Frank in school library because it was a real downer. Nobody wants to read that stuff. Lord of the Flies banned. That's just a real downer. Nobody wants to read that.
Right.
It's depressing.
Exactly. So like I brought up Animal Farm. So
Mhm.
one of the things like I always say is like words have meaning. That was a big like Rush Limbaugh used to say that a lot, is words have meaning, and they do. And so basically they wrote all the rules and like nobody could read. And I feel like we keep changing the meaning of words and make it so that like, and kids aren't taught script anymore.
Cursive
And
writing.
so
Yeah.
cursive, sorry, yeah. And so they can't like read it. So like the Constitution, it's in cursive, the original document.
Right.
But we can look up on the internet paraphrased versions.
Somebody will translate what it actually means for
We'll
you.
tell you what they meant with those big hard words. Right. And those words are so, indecipherable.
Yeah.
And, people say that about religion and whatever. Oh, the Bible, it said this, but what they meant with the words back then was really this or whatever. And I'm not saying, we need to accept those things, but
it's okay to read source material though.
They would write the rules on a chalkboard up in the barn about, these are the rules that we live by. And they kept going in and changing them.
Right.
And they would be like, oh, yeah, it always said that.
It always said that.
And
it always said except for pigs.
That's what our society does though now is, well, the Constitution says this. Well, what they really meant was this.
Everyone's equal except for some people are more equal.
Right.
Yeah.
They try and use words like, well, you don't understand the context. Because if in the older times, the Second Amendment, they didn't have machine guns and airplanes.
The government also didn't have machine guns and airplanes, but that's aside the point.
Yeah, and they did have Gatling guns and cannons, though. And like come the Civil War and stuff, like a lot of these,
you can actually and hypothetically, you can actually build a cannon in your front yard and an operating cannon and have that. But I don't know. Somebody's going to start asking questions if you start manufacturing.
So which
cannons.
one is the big pipe, and then you want to wrap it with another pipe? That's why you always see like the cannons. When you see the really big guns, they'll have like a thick barrel at the beginning,
at the base,
and then it gets smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to take one pipe, and then where the explosion happens, to have it like wrapped with another pipe.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen is like, say, a 4-inch pipe, and then a 1-inch space, and then a 6-inch pipe, and they fill it with concrete
in between.
And then again, yeah. Oh, was I getting off task? Was
we're just talking about how to build a cannon.
Free speech offensive?
Yeah, it's
right.
Hurt my feelings.
No, but that's my point. Is people are like, oh, you can't show people that. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we show people that? People should know. We just did the episode on covert entry. I don't think that people are going to use my information to go break into a house or whatever. But I think if you understand things and you understand how the world works, you understand ideas and what people are thinking and how they're doing things, then I think you can better prepare on how people might be manipulating you.
Yeah.
It always is the joke that, oh, the government's listening to everything, whatever you say, the internet, it's going to be there forever. It's stupid stuff on YouTube. Well, in 10 years, all of a sudden, stuff that I say today is offensive. I mean, it was really offensive today when I said it.
Right.
But we're going to pretend 10 years, it's really offensive. And now he should be fired from his job and not allowed to live. Remember, like, there were all those stories way back of like a baseball player called somebody a fag or something on, in junior high on like a post or something. And they were like, look, he's a hater. He's the, worst person in the world. Whereas everybody in the 80s or something would say stupid things like that.
Right.
Oh,
if you went to public school in the 80s, then you definitely heard multiple people called gay for multiple reasons,
Right. And nobody was like, oh, well, it's because you're really gay. And I think that's horrible. It was just what you said. But that's my point is people want to hold people accountable to the standards of today.
Right.
And to the way we see the world today. And that's not really a fair assessment. I'm reading this book, just about finished. It was 50 hours. And I hate zombie books and viruses and the dystopian thing. But sure enough, that's what this ended up being.
Right.
I'm gonna pull it up here. It's,
and I'll be honest with you, I love zombie and viruses and all that
I love EMP
fiction
and apocalypse books, but yeah,
everyone has their own idea how the world ends, right?
So this was called The Last Survivors on Audible, and it's like, dude, it was 50 something hours, and I'm like, I have 24 minutes left. I'm getting to the end, but anyway, so it's supposed to be far into the future, where basically a virus comes and kills everybody so quick that like society breaks down and there's no more technology, right? Like all that stuff goes away and we're back to,
because nobody really knows how to build a cell phone on their own.
So it's like a straight medieval times kind of book. Like people are using swords. Nobody even knows what a gun is. They tech magic and, like that. Hand grenades and airplanes and cars, they were tech magic. People were able to go from one place to another. It's crazy. So, but they controlled the people with simple, basic ideas. And so they had the word, like the prophecy from days of old. And our founders said this, and this is how we do it. So the word says, that the people need to go and gather food and I'm in charge and you need to just do what you're told.
Right.
And nobody questioned it. And the thing is though, so basically what would happen is if you caught the virus, you would get these warts that you would be exposed, like they could see that you were bad.
Right.
And so they would have once a year, the cleansing, and people would come into town and they'd have a census and you'd have to pull off your shirt and they'd look at your back and make sure you didn't have any of these warts or whatever.
Right.
And if you did, they would burn you because that way you wouldn't spread your evil to other people. And in
that seems like a
way,
dangerous place to have a triple nipple.
right, exactly. Well, that was the thing. So like you could go up and punch somebody in the back
Mm-hmm.
and they'd have a big yellow purple bruise
Mm-hmm.
and they would be like, look, he's got the early signs. Yep. Nope, he's going. Look at the marks. He's smudged is what they called it. He's smudged, and they would burn him. And so that's how they kind of controlled everything. Now, in a way, it kept the disease from spreading throughout the town. But then it turned out that not everybody turned into a horrible monster if they had this, smudge. So, whatever. But people would think it's wrong. Oh, you burned my mother, you burned my sister, you burned whatever. But if you ever spoke out against anything, then you were some kind of blasphemer and they would burn you too. And that's the whole thing. That's the world we end up in when we try and shut everybody down. Oh, what you're saying is hate speech and it's evil and whatever. No, what you're saying is mean and hurtful. And I don't want to hang out or support a mean, hurtful person. And screw you, I'm not going to give you my time. But it doesn't mean we have to destroy them.
Right.
That's not how the world should work. The world is, let's have an idea and a discussion. And, hey, maybe I don't want to hire somebody who walks around with a big swastika tattoo on his arm. Okay, that's fair. That's okay for you.
That's your business.
You don't do that, but maybe then, and maybe you do want the guy who has, I don't know, whatever other thing. And you like that guy, you don't like the swastika, but you like the guy who wears the Jewish star on his forehead, but other customers, people don't go for that. It's you choose the world you want to live in, but we don't have to hate each other.
Right.
To do
and
that.
You don't get to tell other people what world they live in either. Right.
But that is the world.
I mean, you can tell them, right? But they don't have to list it. Right.
But I also don't need to put you on my show if I think you're a jackass. That's the thing. We get to choose. And so, yeah, I enjoy ideas like this. You want to learn more about the world and have a better discussion. What were you going to say, Kevin? Let's see.
No, I mean, I fully support listening to racist people, and I will tell them how stupid I think they are when it's my turn to talk.
There is nothing
whatever
wrong.
Your crazy idea is, I'm down. I'll listen to it. I'll hear you out, but I'm not arguing with you.
Put it in the comments. Be like, you know what, Chuck? You really offend me.
You're a dick.
Chuck, your beard, it smells like tuna fish or whatever, I don't know. Whatever it is, that's what you need to do. You need to express yourself. That's cool. And sometimes you don't need to let people know that you hate them. You can keep that to yourself too. It's whatever you want to do. I let people know I hate them all the time, dude. I can't. I have no filter, whatsoever. Maybe that's why I'm such a big advocate for free speech. It's because I have no filter. Who knows? Right. But you have questions, concerns, show ideas. You can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, share the podcast anywhere that that you think might help spread the word. Because honestly, the more people who are prepared, the more people who are standing up for freedom, the more people who have your back out there, the better the world's going to be for all of us. It's a rising tide lifts all boats. Not, it's not one piece of pie and you just have to get yours before everybody else gets theirs. It doesn't
the whole
have
world
to
is
work
a bakery.
that way. We can all get there. And the more people who know how to bake, the more cake I get to eat. So that's really what's important. So with that, I would say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.